Coming up on the show, a lifeline for homeless families in Metro Atlanta is on the brink of shutting down. We're going to look at what's behind the push to keep the doors open. Also, big changes coming to your 401k, from higher limits to new investment options that could reshape the way you save for retirement. And we're going to look at the risk of those as well. And a recent college graduate is using his journey so far through life to inspire a whole new generation. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome, I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to give their take and share their expertise on today's top stories. We try to have just a little bit of fun as well. Let's get you started with this. Seems to be a mass exodus of black women from the American workforce this year. It's so sharp, it's being called a warning sign for the entire economy. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is showing roughly 300,000 black women were no longer in the U.S. workforce, and in just 3 months. The agency also found that the unemployment rate for black women sits at 6%, which is double that of white women. Black women also make up 12% of the federal workforce compared to just 7% of the private sector. This is viewed as an overrepresentation in the federal roles and a place which has seen major reductions. Here now to help us make sense of it all is Nautica Roy. Nautica, welcome to the show. Nautica, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right. When you hear that 300,000 black women have left or have been pushed out of the workforce in just 3 months, what's the first thing that jumps to your mind about this?
The first thing that jumps to my mind is actually what it means for Georgia. One of the things that we know is that overall, while 300,000 black women left the labor force in 90 days, almost 13,000 of them were in Georgia, costing the state almost $1.6 billion in GDP. That is a policy failure with a measurable price tag.
Do we know why this is taking place?
Well, yes, we do. There were cuts to the federal labor force. There have been dismantling of DEI programs. We have seen DEI programs drop by almost half in the last 2 years. And that has actually affected black women. You mentioned that black women's representation is about 12% of the federal labor force, double their overall representation in the labor force. And actually in Georgia, their representation of the federal labor force is 25%.
What does this say about how the market is working now or not working?
Well, black women are really what is called the canary in the coal mine when we talk about labor force participation, because you see the intersection of race and gender, and they tend to be the impacted the most and first. And one of the things that we have seen is that cuts to public education and healthcare have impacted them the most.
Yeah. What kind of stress does this create for mothers trying to keep food on the table?
It's a huge stress, especially in the state of Georgia. One of the things that we know is that within black households in the state of Georgia, moms are the breadwinners in 80% of those households, and they have the largest gender pay gap of any women in the labor force. It's 44 cents on the dollar. So investing in black breadwinner moms is an investment in today's economy and the future.
What makes Georgia unique among some of the other southern cities?
Well, they have a large representation of black breadwinner moms. They also have a pretty high representation of the federal labor force. So when you look at a little over 3% of the federal labor force was cut, and 33% of that 3% were black women. Yeah,
you mentioned the federal jobs. Will it mean that we'll move over into the private sector? We'll see that number go up, perhaps?
Maybe. I mean, I think one of the things that we're seeing with a write down of almost 90% of job growth in the last 3 months is the question of can black women find jobs? And if they can't, a lot of times what they do is turn to entrepreneurship, not out of luxury, but actually out of survival.
So you're thinking this thing could turn around one way or the other?
Well, we hope so, but we know that overall, 300,000 black women leaving the labor force overall for the United States, it takes out $37 billion in GDP. And that doesn't even count what's happening with inflation, where women's goods are rising at 170% greater than men's goods.
So what would a company or a government agency need to do differently tomorrow to keep Black women in the workforce?
Well, they need to restore public sector jobs. They need to invest in diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the things that we've also seen is the artificial intelligence. We need to invest in in skilling Black women to increase their representation in tech. And then lastly, what we need to do is look at policy through an intersectional gender lens, which basically means gender plus race and ethnicity. We often assume that public policy is gender neutral. It isn't, it's gender ignorant. And that actually ensures, when we look at that and ensure that it's inclusive, that's a better economic opportunity for everyone.
If you could speak as policymakers right now, what would be one of the things you would say to them to help stop this trend?
I would say invest in Black women. We need to invest in their skilling. We need to invest in their inclusion. One of the things that we know is that the reason that Black women have such a high concentration in the federal labor force is because it's one of the places where they have had more equitable pay and more equitable opportunity. If we can guarantee that not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector, that's not only good for Black women, it's actually good for our entire economy.
Lastly, if you could talk to some of the women who've lost their jobs and looking for hope, what would you say to them right now?
I would say that to keep going, to band together. I have heard from so many people since my last MSNBC, since my MSNBC article published, and we need to come together and work together to ensure equitable opportunities for everyone. Kalika Roy, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for your insight today. Really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, take care. All right, folks, it's going to be a hot and humid one out there today. We're looking at temperatures getting into the 90s for highs, but it's going to feel like the upper 90s out there. It's going to feel more like 97, 98 degrees for the high temperature. A couple thunderstorms could be around. Nothing that's going to really stop you. They're very isolated, so a lot of the area won't see it. There's only a few of us will get some of those showers. So here's my advice. Take the umbrella, put it in the back seat of the car, just in case you drive somewhere, you have to park, and you happen to hit one of those showers, you get out. Got your umbrella right there, go on in the building and wait for it to end and then come on back out. 91 degrees for the high on Tuesday. We'll have a little bit more area of coverage as far as the storms go. Got a 40% chance for the rain. Back down to a 30% chance for Wednesday, Thursday, with temperatures around 90 degrees, down to the 80s over the weekend because our chance for rain goes up. 50% chance on Friday, Saturday, 85 degrees Saturday, Sunday, 86 with a 30% chance for rain. When we come back, we're going to check in with Alice Barr, the latest on what's taking place in Capitol Hill. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the show. President Trump is welcoming Ukraine's president to the White House today, keeping hope alive that he can end the nation's war with Russia. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Good morning, Alice. President Zelensky is hopefully for a much better visit than his last visit in February with the president.
Yes, because that last one, you may remember the images, you may remember the sounds of shouting that drifted out of the Oval Office when President Trump and Vice President Vance had some very sharp words for Ukrainian President Zelensky, saying that he hadn't been thankful enough for the aid that the U.S. had provided up to that point. President Trump said he didn't have the cards and needed to kind of show his gratitude and back down a little bit. And so that was not a great moment for Ukrainian President Zelensky here in Washington. And today is going to be quite different because he's going to have the backing of several European leaders who are coming as well. As we understand it, there's first going to be a meeting just between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. And then after that, all of these European allies are going to join for a larger meeting talking about their desire to see the U.S. stand with Europe and stand with Ukraine against this Russian assault that's gone on for now 3.5 years.
Yeah, you mentioned those allies being with him. What kind of message did that send?
Yeah, I think really we saw, of course, this all comes after the Trump and Putin summit in Alaska on Friday. And there was some really striking imagery out of that meeting. You had literally the red carpet rolled out for Vladimir Putin, and then, handshakes, a lot of sort of warm looking signals between those two leaders that certainly critics are not pleased with seeing, given the fact that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal and had not been to the U.S. in quite some time. The past administration had done more of an effort to try to isolate him. The Trump administration believes that he has to be brought to the table, that is the only way to wind down this war that has been so costly over these years. But that's all the imagery up to this point. And today, the European allies are saying, okay, if you're going to have a handshake for Putin, then you're going to have the locked arms of Europe here standing with Zelensky and showing that this is important to us, that, the Russian aggression is at the doorstep of Europe, and there's been concerns all along that he could go beyond Ukraine. And so they want to make sure that Ukraine's interests are protected in any peace deal that may come out of all of this.
Got it. All right. The president came with no deal on Friday with his meeting with Russian President Putin. How much tougher of a position does this place the White House?
It's tricky because President Trump has more than once said that he's going to levy some sanctions against Russia, that he's going to have severe consequences, a number of different things that could be. And he has repeatedly sort of stepped to the edge of doing that and then has extended, has offered, a different reason to not do that at this moment. We heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio that, in fact, he thinks that leveling sanctions right now would have a negative effect on the push for peace, and that would likely end the negotiations, and that no one else would then be in a position to try to pull Russia back from what it's been doing. The problem is that Russia has not been pulled back from what it's been doing to this point. It has only continued its assault and continued the death and destruction in Ukraine. And so President Trump is going to have to make up his mind about whether he thinks he may lose face if he keeps, threatening something against Russia and then not following through. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on him today at these meetings to take the next step.
Sounds like it. All right, Alice Barr, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your insight. All right. A place of refuge could be closing its doors. We're going to talk to the executive director of Calvary Refuge Center coming up. Stay tuned. For more than 40 years, Calvary Refuge Center in Forest Park has been a lifeline for families with no place else to turn. Now crippling funding, cuts, and surging need has the facility on the verge of closing its doors and leaving dozens out on the street. Joining us today is Executive Director Keisha Zimmerman. Keisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. What goes through your mind when you think about the possibility of having to turn those families away for the first time in decades?
When I think about having to, being that we're the only shelter in the Clayton County area, we're located in Forest Park, and we service all surrounding counties such as Fulton County, DeKalb County, Henry County, as well as Clayton County. And it saddens me to think that after providing services to the unhoused community for so many years that we may have to close our doors. Where will those residents go? Where will they go? Mm-hmm. We're the only shelter in the Clayton County area that can serve the entire family. So where would they go? So that really saddens me.
Talk to me quickly about how a night goes in your service to those families.
First, what happens is they would call our crisis line to schedule a housing intake. Once they come in for intake, which is usually around 3 o'clock, we complete the intake. After the intake, we provide check-in from 5:30 until 6:15. At that time, we provide them with MARTA bus passes so that they're able to go out and search for jobs and housing and attend medical appointments and daycare appointments, schooling appointments the next day. Once they're in at 6:15, from 6:15 to 6:30, they have time to just get themselves ready for the next day. We serve dinner from 6:30 to 7 o'clock. During that dinner time, we have different churches, businesses, and organizations that come in and provide a ministry and a meal. and encouragement so that they can carry that along for the next day. Once that is completed, then we complete case management, and then they have chores that they complete on a nice nightly basis. Then at 9 o'clock, the lights are out. They prepare for bed from around 7:45 to 9 o'clock to get ready for that next day, and then it starts all over again that next morning at 5:30.
What steps have you taken so far to try to keep the doors open?
What we've been doing is unlike in previous years, we would do a fall fundraiser, but this year we decided to step up our fundraising efforts. And so we started a new fundraiser this year, which is our summer fundraiser. And we're in hopes that we can encourage new donors as well as our older donors to come and support us. Also, we're going out into the community, talking to different businesses, organizations, churches, trying to increase our awareness in the community for that community support. We're reaching out for that community support, letting others know that we're in the community and that we've been in the community for over 40 years, and it would just be devastating if we have to discontinue our services to the community that we serve.
Yeah, a loss like that would probably have a broader impact on the entire community. Talk to us briefly about that.
Yes, it would, because I'm gonna give you some figures from last year. We served over 1,000 individuals last year. So can you imagine where would the individuals go? Where would these families go? Who would provide this housing, especially when there's an increase in the cost of housing? We provide 21 nights of free emergency shelter, and while they're there, we're providing them with all the tools to hopefully help them gain self-sufficiency by the end of our 21 nights. And if not, then we will refer them to other programs, other agencies. And if we're not there, then where will they go?
Two questions for you. Got 30 seconds here real quick. What would you say to lawmakers right now if they were sitting before you to help out in this situation? And how can the community get involved in helping you out?
Well, with the lawmakers, I would encourage them to have more grant opportunities or more funding sources for organizations like ours. We've seen a decrease in the number of grants and streams of revenue for organizations like ourselves. Now, in order to, if anyone would like to reach out to us, they can reach out to us via info@calvaryrefuge.org. They can visit our website at calvaryrefuge.org, and they can go to our donate page, where now we're raising donations to keep the doors open.
All right. Keisha Zimmerman, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for that insight, and thank you for all that you do for our community.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care. All right, changes are coming to your 401k. We're going to bring in the man to talk about how that breaks down as far as your wallet goes coming up. Stay right there. Welcome back to the show. Saving for retirement just got a shakeup. Yep, from bigger 401k limits to automatic enrollment to brand new options like crypto and private equity. Earlier this month, President Trump signed an executive order aimed at expanding investment options. Now, 401k plans are allowed to include private equity, real estate, cryptocurrency, in addition to traditional options. It also directs the Department of Labor to re-examine and clarify guidelines on fiduciary duties under the Employment Retirement Income Security Act of 1974. And it seeks stronger protections to reduce lawsuits against plan sponsors offering these new assets. Let's dive into this thing with our financial expert and friend of the show, Andrew Poulos. Welcome back, my friend.
Good morning, Chesley.
All right. Why are these changes being made now? What's the problem that we're having to solve?
Well, we're in a new era where crypto is front and center with everything we do, especially for younger generation who loves to invest in crypto, fast returns, just the YOLO type of stuff that we're seeing out there in the market, but more so to create more avenues for people to invest, which basically will do well for some and leave others empty-handed at the end of the day if they're not careful as we proceed into this new era of investments.
Wow. So does it create new opportunities or more opportunities, or does it just have room for more mistakes for us to make?
Yeah, well, a little bit of both, right? It certainly creates new opportunities. There'll be these, once they set the regulations in place and administrators know what they can and can't have in the 401k plans, that'll determine what 401k money can invest in, as you mentioned, private equity, real estate, crypto. Crypto's the big one, of course. And so Then we'll see where money can go into. There'll be ETFs, exchange traded funds, within these 401ks where it'll be a bag, say, of cryptocurrency, or a bag of private equity investments, or a bag of real estate, for example, and then folks will be able to invest in those. The concerning part is, as it should be, is that investing in crypto, we've seen the volatility already. It's only going to get worse the more money that flows into cryptocurrency and these alternative investments via 401ks, right? So you got to be prepared to, sort of have a higher risk tolerance if you're going to invest in these alternative investments with your retirement account.
Yeah. What are some of the more reliable options for your retirement?
I mean, look, if you're closer to retirement, let's just say you're in your 50s, 60s, or very close to retirement, I think obviously any financial advisor would advise that you stick with the more traditional path of stocks and bonds, right? Less volatility. Yes, the returns would be lower, but your money is safer as you get into retirement. If you're younger, if you're in your 20s, early 30s, and you have 20, 30, 40 years before retirement, and you're willing to take a chance and you have some higher tolerance for risk, then yeah, you're probably going to look at potentially investing a little bit of crypto, some real estate, for example, within your 401k. That can boost up your returns much faster in a shorter time frame. But you got to be very smart. Don't go all in, for example, like a lot of people do, thinking that they're just going to have some multiplier of 200-300% gains in a year, because those fast gains can come right back down just as fast.
Wow. So who benefits from it? Is these new changes? Is it the high-end earners or the average workers?
Yeah, listen, if you're an average worker, you can certainly benefit from it if you play it smart and you don't really have a lot of money invested in this stuff to start out with, right? I just think that the more money we see going now from 401ks especially into crypto, is just going to make more volatility, basically. So we're going to see just some sharp upswings and some very sharp drawdowns.
All right, Andrew Poulos, thanks so much for joining us. And hey, I noticed the pocket square doesn't match the tie today. Is that a new trend or something? What's going on
today? I'm trying to follow your steps.
My friend, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Good thing.
All right, coming up on the show, folks, a fight with an HOA could bring changes for some in our area. Plus, Georgia Tech has a new degree that combines arts, entertainment, and technology. It's all coming up right after the break. Don't go anywhere. One man's $30,000 fight with its HOA in Southwest Atlanta is leading to big changes in that community. Senior investigator Rebecca Lindstrom says it's one more example of why so many feel Georgia's laws need to change. Rebecca, good morning to you, first of all.
Good morning.
What's happening at Peyton Place?
We have followed efforts to clean up this community for nearly 2 years. Hard to believe it has been that long. It started when Michael Shepard bought a townhouse in Peyton Place, and he quickly realized the HOA board had little interest in removing things like abandoned cars or fixing the roofs and fences. He invited us out to take a look. He started leaning on code enforcement, hoping the city could force the HOA to act, but the HOA president at the time just told the court she had no money because people weren't paying their dues.
Oh man, is that true? Are people paying?
I mean, yes and no. First, there's no real proof the HOA was even trying to collect that money. There's also no proof the HOA board was even paying, even though the president, we looked at property records and determined the president owns at least a dozen units in a community of just 47 townhomes. So Shepard tried to rally owners to oust the board, but the HOA leaders ignored him. So we went to Superior Court, and that is where he finally won a default judgment, a ruling that allowed him to get control of the HOA bank account and form a new board. It took a lot of time and obviously money. He said, as you mentioned, he spent at least $30,000 of his own money to make that happen. And of course, Jesslyn, most people just can't do that.
Wow. Okay. So there's a new board. What kind of changes have you seen so far?
It was exciting to be back out in the community and to really see some movement. The new HOA board has set up a payment portal for dues. They have created a website for transparency, held meetings with people who are in the community. They have removed broken trash bins that have, been in the parking lot and just sort of created a landfill type existence in the parking lot itself. They have started fixing leaky roofs, but removing those abandoned cars like you saw there. But one old problem does remain, and that is you still need money to make the repairs. So now, as they have started to, really enforce this, about half of the units are in collections. Shepard says he's willing to work with them to set up a payment plan. And, I might have missed the nuance, but they did need to realize there is a functioning HOA board and they want to get the community fixed up. So right around the corner we found is a apartment complex. It was a troubled apartment complex. It's now being demolished to make way for new affordable housing.
There is a wave of change right now throughout the city. And then even on this side of town, right around the corner, you have homes that are going for $500,000, $600,000, and it looks like you are a million miles away. It looked like you went through a portal. Hopefully you guys can get footage of that, and that's changing, and I want this community to be a part of that change.
Wow, Rebecca, it sounds like it just goes beyond just one community's problem. Are lawmakers paying attention to this?
We have been begging lawmakers, really, to pay attention to this issue. And there have been people like State Representative Kim Schofield. She told me she hears from families every single week who are losing their homes because of HOA issues, or at least in some type of battle. She has been working on reform since 2022, but the bills have gone nowhere. Part of the problem, she is a Democrat, along with others who have been really vocal on this issue. And it is the Republicans, as we know, that hold the majority in both the state House and Senate. So that is why this year there is some renewed hope. Republican State Senator Matt Brass has introduced a bill to create an administrative hearing process through the Secretary of State's office, basically a less expensive alternative to those costly court battles. The bill would also raise the minimum debt threshold for foreclosures from $2,000 to $4,000 and require that only includes actual dues, not fines in that amount.
How did he get involved in this issue?
Well, I love this. It was the good old-fashioned community involvement. A homeowner reached out, he met to hear the story, and then he decided that something really did need to change. And that echoes what all of the lawmakers I have been talking with on this issue say. You need to reach out to your representatives. You need to make this personal to them as well.
All right, so what happens next?
Senator Brass, he's going to be holding hearings this fall to research his ideas. We're going to hear from the Secretary of State's office to hear how they feel these administrative hearings can fall into place. And again, reach out to your lawmakers if you've been impacted. It does sound like they're the ones that are going to have to vote on this, so they need to hear from you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Rebecca. Really appreciate that report. We'll be looking forward to seeing more. All right, she's going to have more from lawmakers on this proposed change tonight at 11 o'clock, right here on 11 Live News and on 11 Live Plus. And if you have a tip for Rebecca and you want her to check out, call her at 404-873-9111. Again, 404-873-9111. Or you can email her at investigates@11alive.com. All right, let's take a live look over here toward, downtown Atlanta. Looking pretty good today. We do have plenty of sunshine on the outside. We're looking pretty good. And so it's going to be a nice day. All right, next year, Georgia Tech will take some creative game to the next level, right? Preparing to launch a first of its kind degree which fuses art, entertainment, and cutting edge technology. Here to explain more is Professor Jason Freeman. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, let's talk about this, man. What's behind the inspiration of creating this degree that blends all these different genres together?
Well, we've really been looking over the last couple of years here at Georgia Tech at the growth of creative industries here in the state of Georgia, not just film and television, but also areas like gaming and immersive media. And we've been looking at the ways that technology is radically transforming how these industries work, how we create new art, how we share it and disseminate it. Things like artificial intelligence and cloud computing and extended reality. And so we really feel like Georgia Tech is in a unique position to help usher in this technological change in the industry by training students who are really well-versed in creative practice, but also have this deep understanding of technology and business practices so that they can really help us to innovate and help continue to grow these industries in the state.
So walk us through the curriculum. Like, what will students be learning actually?
So students will take hands-on practice-based courses where they're learning about the fundamentals of artistic practice, things that transcend different forms of creation, like storytelling, world building, visual form, sound. They'll also be leveraging some of the existing coursework at Georgia Tech, particularly in areas like electrical engineering and computer science. So they can really get deep into things like how artificial intelligence works and how they can leverage it in creative domains. And then they'll also be participating in courses that relate to business and entrepreneurship skills. They'll have options to learn how to create their own startup companies or to take a number of courses within our College of Business here.
So the person who gets this degree will more likely be an entrepreneur, or what type of job will they be seeking?
So at Georgia Tech, we really try to train students to have broad-based undergraduate foundations that let them go in a number of different directions. So some students may choose to go in more directions focused on creative practice, working in animation, in post-production, in producing content, while others may go work at technology companies, helping to design the tools that the next generation of creators are going to use. And then certainly some will found their own companies to really fill gaps that aren't being met right now.
Do you see Atlanta's film and music and gaming industry playing a role in the success of this program?
Absolutely. We've been having hundreds of conversations with leaders here throughout the state, trying to get a sense of what they're looking for and how this program complements other exceptional programs in higher education in the state. And so we really, through their help, they've helped us to find this unique niche that we think that Georgia Tech is positioned to fill. And we're going to continue collaborating with them through coursework, through internships and other opportunities for our students to make sure that the work they're doing here is really connected to industry from the moment they set foot on campus.
Is that the hope with this? Is it the hope that you will go beyond the Georgia Tech's perception of just being an engineering powerhouse, that there's much more to it?
Absolutely. We've been moving in that direction for decades, and we've been obviously have an incredible reputation in STEM fields, but there's a lot happening here as well in areas like music and digital media and even poetry. And so this really leans into this whole set of strengths that we have at Georgia Tech, both on the technical science and engineering computing side, but also on the business side, and also on this, from the perspective of design and creative practice.
Sounds good. 10 years from now, what would success look like for the program in your eyes?
We want to see homegrown Georgia leaders that graduate from this program that really establish new companies or help grow some of the infrastructure that we have here, really establishing the state of Georgia as a leader, not just in the creative industries, but in responsible and innovative uses of technology within them.
Sounds good. Professor Jason Friedman, thanks so much for your insight, and good luck with the degree.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. All right, plenty more stories for you coming up. This is The Take, and we're back right after this. Jerome Powell is set to defend his policies managing the Federal Reserve in, of all places, Western Wyoming. CNN's Maribel Aber joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Hello, Maribel, and at the action, it feels like all eyes on the Fed chair this week as he tries to make his case.
Hi, Chesley. That's right. A big week for Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve. The Fed is holding its annual research conference in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It will be capped off with a major policy speech by Powell on Friday. Wall Street is looking for signs of when the Fed will start cutting its key interest rate. Right now, most are expecting the rate will be lowered by at least a quarter point at the Fed's meeting in September. Now, this speech by Powell comes as President Trump keeps the pressure on the Fed chair to lower that key interest rate. Powell's term ends next May, and the White House reportedly already has a number of people it's considering as his replacement to run the Fed. So a lot to watch there. Chesley.
Oh yeah, we'll be watching very closely. All right, apparently they're making more sizzle than power in thousands of power banks.
Okay, more than 30,000 wireless power banks are being recalled due to the risk of fires and explosions. The devices are from ESR Halo Lock, and there are 3 models being recalled: the 2G520, the 2G505B, and the 2G512B. All 3 were sold by Amazon, Home Depot, and ESR's website between September of 2023 through July of this year. Now, ESR has received 9 reports of the chargers catching fire and exploding. No injuries have been reported, but the fires and explosions have resulted in about $20,000 in property damage. Consumers are urged to stop using the recalled devices, and refunds are available by contacting ESR. Chesley.
All right, here's one I love. Samsung versus Apple battling for U.S. market share, and we could say Samsung has folded its way into Apple's turf.
Ding, ding, ding. They have. Samsung is grabbing market share from Apple in the U.S. thanks to new smartphones. So last month, Samsung rolled out 2 foldable phones. One is the Z Flip and resembles an old school flip phone. And the other is the Z Fold 7 and essentially turns the phone into a tablet. So the 2 new devices have been gaining traction on social media, and the pair have led to a surge in shipments from Samsung phones, according to Canalys. The tech research firm says Samsung's U.S. market share jumped 31% from 23% last quarter. Now, Apple's market share dropped from 56% down to 49%. Apple's new slimmer iPhone is due out next month. So, Chesley, we'll see what Apple's coming out with.
Can't wait for that. Can't wait. All right, finally, it turns out friendship isn't priceless. It's breaking the bank, according to young adults.
Can you hear it? Why can't we be friends? Like many young adults say friendship is getting too expensive, Chesley. Now, a survey from Ally Financial found 44% of Gen Z and millennials have skipped big social events due to the cost. And a quarter say they fear missing out on friendships and community because of financial limitations. Now, Ally, which is an all-digital bank, says there are ways to manage money to help ease the strain. It recommends tracking your spending, planning ahead, and setting aside money in a friendship fund to take advantage of social opportunities. Now, Ally says those steps can help you stay financially grounded while making lasting memories with friends. Chesley, look, we know weddings can be pricey to go to. Well, you could spend like $600 just the gift and like getting there in the hotel, right? And then what about if you want to take, I don't know, a cruise with your friends? That's kind of pricey. So I'm thinking karaoke at your house and a walk in the park, maybe. Well, I don't know.
We'll have to see about that. Maybe pricely too. I don't know. What's the alternative? Not being friends? I don't understand that.
Exactly. No, I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like it either. Thanks a lot, Maribel. Really appreciate it.
You got it.
All right. Coming up on the show, we're going to hear the inspirational story from one young author. That's coming up next. Stay right there, folks. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. From hospital bed to children's author and now medical school bound graduate. Ernest Lewis's journey is one we followed here on 11Alive. And this past spring, he shared a message that failure isn't the end, it's the foundation. Ernest joins us now live with one of the newest members of Gordon State College's class of 2025. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. College graduate. Sounds nice, right? How does it feel? How does it feel?
It feels surreal. I've been on this journey for about 8 years, on and off, but to get to that end point, I am so thankful for everything, especially my parents and my grandparents too, just everybody.
Yeah, no, that's right. And back in May, you stated in your speech to your fellow graduates that you are a self-proclaimed failure. Why did you do that?
One thing that really defined my journey, getting to that point, were my failures, because I believe that each failure that I had a key to success. Because without failure, for me, success will be near unrecognizable. And without success, we'll never understand the value that failure provides. So my message there was that we need to embrace both in order to be truly successful.
Yeah. Talk briefly about some of those hurdles that you had to jump over early in life.
Of course. Well, it started when I was a very young child. At 8 years old, I was battling a near terminal lung disease. And this disease kept me in the hospital. And I never knew if the next breath I took would be my last. So it was extremely hard for me to cope with feeling like I did something wrong in life to end up in that position. Then when I grew up, I started college. And I ended my first semester at Gordon State with a GPA of 0.81. So from there, according to almost everybody, I should not have been able to graduate and pursue my dream career of becoming a doctor.
Wait, now you started out with a 0.81 and you got it up to a 4.0. How'd you do that?
A lot of trials. A lot of trials. I had to realize that I cannot let my failures define who I am, but my perception and response to those failures dictate who I become. So I had to really take a look at myself and change how I did things.
Yeah. Because we talked to you a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, and you were writing a children's book. How important was it to you to pen that and share those stories?
It's extremely important. In fact, branching off the children's books, I've actually began to develop a play that's being produced this October. The play is called The Boy Who Brought His Mind to Life, and it's part of the Conyers Creative Kids segment. And it's directed by award-winning director Dave DiPietro. And this story is one that tackles the struggle that I had to go through during childhood, and it's set to premiere this October.
All right, you told the graduates to become the guy that chooses where you go. How can people start doing that today, even if they feel lost?
Just taking a look at yourself. And I believe that when you look back on things, you can see in hindsight how something could have been changed. And I believe just looking back just a couple of steps, because sometimes you have to take 2 steps back to advance 3 steps forward in another direction. So I believe it's important to learn from where you went wrong and assess each situation, because failures should not be something that you're scared of. They should be something that you have to comfort, because like I said, failure and success have to coexist in this world.
All right, so I want you to look back just a little bit. Now, if your younger self was lying in that bed and you could see yourself now, what would you say to him?
I would say everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because I truly was scared, and I didn't know if that was it for my life. That was how far I was supposed to go. So. Yeah.
And now, where are you going, Ernest? What's the next biggest thing? What you about to accomplish, my friend?
Well, along with the play, I have been developing a children's show called Moonlight Scholars. Once again, this show takes what I had during childhood and brings it to life, because this show serves as a superhero that I needed when I was a child. And this show, I want to become the comfort zone of millions of children in the hospital as well. So if anybody out there shares the vision, we are currently looking for the right representation or network to partner with on this. Mm-hmm. And aside from that, I'm of course pursuing medical school, and aiming to become a pediatric pulmonologist.
Nice, man. And you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it. You're gonna be able to do it. And hopefully somebody out there heard your plea for some assistance, and hopefully they'll get it to you, man. We wish you all the success, especially as you go on to medical school and come back and help me out, okay?
Yeah, for sure.
I'll need it. Ernest, thanks so much for joining us, man. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, another look at your forecast, folks, plus my final take after the break. All right, we're looking at a hot and humid afternoon. In fact, I think the warmest day of this week will be today, 93 degrees. The afternoon high temperature, you factor in the humidity, it's going to feel closer to 100 out there, maybe like 98. We'll also have the threat for an isolated shower to pop up with a few embedded thunderstorms. A little better chance on Tuesday. We'll have a 40% chance for that rain to be around. We'll be at 91 for the high, down to 90, at least closer to where we should be by Wednesday, Thursday. We'll have a 30% chance for a few isolated showers with a few embedded thunderstorms here or there. But that chance goes up by the end of the week. By Friday, we're looking at a 50% chance for the rain. We'll be at 87 degrees for the high. And then over the weekend, you're looking at mid-80s. You're looking at 85 degrees on Saturday, Sunday 86, 50% chance for rain on Saturday, but Sunday only a 30% chance for the rain. All right, it's official, folks. You know the economy is doing not so well when the Tooth Fairy starts cutting back. Mm-hmm. This according to the original Tooth Fairy poll by Delta Dental that has been keeping track of these numbers over the past 27 years. They say the amount under the pillow has fallen 14%, or about $5 from $5.84 just last year. That marks one of the most significant year-over-year declines in Tooth Fairy offerings. Not only that, the poll also reports that additional gifts are down. Only 1 in 6 children receive both money and some other gift. That's down 21% in 2024. Now, despite the drop, parents believe that the Tooth Fairy helps educate their children about the value of money. I guess it's time to start teaching something else then, right? Because if teeth aren't as valuable, maybe they'll start thinking about their pinkies and their toes. Come on, folks, make them work for that job, right? Make them work for that money. Chores are still valuable, right? Help out in the house in which you live, and then give them a little something. That'll teach them some value, right? Work is how you get paid, instead of pulling out your teeth and trying to get money from the Tooth Fairy. But man, that tells you something about the economy when the Tooth Fairy's not giving out. All right, that's all we got for you today, folks. Make it a great day. Try to encourage someone not to pull out their teeth for money.